What's up, Gaming Rebellion? My name is Dirac, and I'm here with Isaiah.
What's up, guys?
And today we are diving into the fascinating and often untold stories of how real-life events shape the games we play and love. Behind every pixel and every line of code lies a team of developers pouring their lives into their craft, sometimes in ways you wouldn't expect. So, take the story of GSC Game World. This is an indie powerhouse behind the newly released Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Their journey to bring this haunting, atmospheric world to life is nothing short of extraordinary. Not only were they grappling with the usual challenges of game development, but they were also navigating the devastating impacts of a real war. From forced relocations to the tragic loss of a teammate, their struggles resonate deeply in the game's story of survival and resilience. But this isn't just about one game, and it makes you wonder, how do developers' circumstances and experiences bleed into the worlds they create? And how does that shape the way we as players connect with their stories? Is there a lesson to be learned through their struggle, especially when it comes to game development? Because it makes it hard to imagine that AAA publishers such as Ubisoft, EA, and the like care about the amount of effort those put into their craft if they can't see dollar signs on first glance. But what are the chances that games like these will continue to rise and hopefully one day sit at the top as the pinnacle of what true game development looks like, whether that be a more somber tone or a more aspect of having fun? But what are your thoughts?
So a lot of this information is coming from Xbox released a documentary on Stalker 2. I really love how they documented from beginning to end how the game was made, to give you, the viewer, the player, that, seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Right.
And all the challenges that went into this. So for those of you who don't know, what's the company called? GSC?
GSC Game World. Yeah, GSC Game World.
Right. So they're based in Ukraine, and recent events will tell you there's been the war that broke out in Ukraine. Actually, the original Stalker was based on the accident that happened in Chernobyl. And, that's the funny thing is that wasn't that long ago, but it's still a piece of history. I mean, look, it was before I was born. Right. And, a lot of us here don't fully understand what happened there. So I think it was it was cool to see them sneaking in to the zone and looking at the pictures that were up back when the Soviet Union was still around.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about. Excuse me, we're like 30 years plus removed from that. So
right.
Yeah, but looking at like the effort that they put in making sure that they had things, I guess, more historically accurate, to allow people from our side of the world a glimpse into what was going on back then with Chernobyl, and now here with the war in Ukraine, and seeing, I guess, getting more of a firsthand recounting of what's happening.
Right.
I really love that. And you can tell if you're willing to sneak into a previous failed nuclear reactor site or whatever, where there's still radiation, like that's passion.
Yeah, it is.
You can absolutely respect that.
No,
I 100% respect the passion coming from this team.
No, yeah. I think that's something that we have to see more in video games these days, because a lot of the games that saturate the market right now, they lack the passion. And it seems like if you're looking for a type of game that has any sort of passion, it would more often than not come from the indie side than where you might find on the AAA side. Not to say that you're never going to find that, but it's just more likely that you'll find it on the indie side. And because they poured so much into their passion for this project with both the prequel and now the newer game, they've accomplished much, and they're sharing a story that, just like with the old legends from other countries that people don't know about, they're sharing that story with the world. And I thought that was truly fascinating that they chose to go with that direction. Granted, it's coming from their perspective, their point of view, but again, they're going above and beyond to be, I suppose you can say, as accurate as possible, using the landscape and whatnot to help build the world. But I just think that is it's something that I'd like to see more in more titles that carry more weight, I guess you could say.
Yeah, this is going outside of gaming, but I don't think I've ever heard of a company going to bat for their employees the way this company did. For those of you who haven't seen the documentary, they had already rented buses. They had bus drivers on standby because while people were hoping war wouldn't happen, they were preparing for the worst. They were preparing so that they could move all of their employees and their families across the country towards NATO's border, because it's smart thinking too, like foresight. Like, okay, Putin probably doesn't want to go to war with NATO, so let's make sure that we have our people. We can still have them in Ukraine, but closer towards the border of a NATO country, and chances are we can survive this and whatnot. Right. And then I thought that was like, you hear about, this is our corporate family and everything like that, but then you're laying off all these people and you don't care. Yeah. They even had former staff members able to get on these buses and whatnot. Like they were preparing for everybody. Again, their family members. You don't see that here. I really definitely respect what they did in trying to make sure that their people were safe.
Right.
And not just to keep the game going, but like I said, keeping former staff members safe. Like, you don't have any obligation to them at all.
Right.
But they went out of their way to do it. And then even crazier was it sounds crazy to me, but it's like, okay, I could get on this bus and leave. And there's you have staff members that are like, no, I'm staying. This is my country. I'm not letting them, like, dang, big respect to these people, man.
Right. Yeah. It's really amazing to see, because they even had members of their development team that were participating in the war efforts, and a lot of them chose to stay where they were stationed and still work on their game development, but also participating in the military events when they were called on, while the other portion of the team moved to a safer area where they can continue working on the game development. But it's like, it's amazing to see that despite everything that was going on around them, that they were still able to hunker down, stay focused, keep everything together for the most part, and still get this game out despite everything that was happening. And you really don't see that kind of that focus, that direction, especially for something like a video game, something that a lot of people I guess you could say a lot of older people would think is just like a stupid kids thing. It's just like, oh, it's a game, I don't care anything about that, it's nothing. But like, for a lot of these people, this is like a livelihood. This is their livelihood. So they not only do they treat it as such, but they go above and beyond. Like, I can't think of any company in America, regardless of the industry, that would go that far for its employees or past employees. And I know that probably has a lot to say about why people trying to work these days just treat their areas of employment as just like another job. Like they don't actually care about it because they have no reason to. And I mean, they're right to do so because their employers don't really care about them.
Well, yeah, then you hear the opposite stories where it's like there's a storm going on and the boss says, hey, everybody has to stay and work, and then people die, and then it's like, well, why did they have to stay there when it was a national, it was an emergency situation. And that sucks, and hopefully we can change that. I guess as we democratize this and have it,
Mhm.
you know, I thought this was a small team, but they had like 100 something people
Mhm.
that they moved. I
Mhm.
don't know how many people was working on their staff,
Right.
specifically, but they're not that small of a team. They
No.
are indie, but they're not that small. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. They started small and then they started to grow. I believe I could be mistaken. I think their original Stalker was the first game, and then they made I think two other side games. I had it listed here, but yeah, they started small. They're starting to expand now, and I just thought it was interesting how they talked about even with the success that they gained from their original game. They recognized what was successful or what made it successful, build on top of it to create something that was better. Like they mentioned, they expand certain areas. Like it's still roughly the same area, but now you can go back to places that were originally blocked off, and they opened it up now. And you can explore more places, and it it's something that sounds simple. Just take what was already there and expand on it. But I've noticed that a lot of games that we see these days, they choose not to do that. They, for whatever reason, they'll have something that works and then they want to try something different. But it's not enough just to add some differences to the game itself. They have to change it completely. Like going on that particular vein, I think of games like what is it called? The game like GTA, Saints Row.
mhm.
Originally, it started as just like a story of a gang war, and with the latest installments, now you're fighting aliens and stuff. I don't know how they got from one to another. I mean, it was
Meth.
yeah. I mean, it still became successful, but at the same time, it's like I can't take this seriously. I
Yeah,
mean, you want to play it and have fun, you do what you want to do, but it for something that, I mean, at least for me, I like to have a game that has like a strong narrative, if possible, or at least is a lot of fun that I could play for hours. So when I see something like this, where I see they care just as much as I do for the story, willing to put their passion behind it, willing to share their personal lives through the game, I think is just amazing. But
yeah.
yeah,
One thing I would caution with this. So this game just came out today.
yeah,
Um, I'm looking at reviews for it, and it's I something I think is ridiculous is
mm,
seeing people. Steam gives you what, 2 hours to play the game before you're
I
allowed to refund it.
yeah,
So most of the reviews that I've seen have like 0.1 hour, 0.2 hours. Like, how did you make any kind of review for the game in such a short amount of time?
right,
And the only reviews on here that I see that are longer, I guess,
Mhm,
are people that got the game for free. So I'm guessing they got a review copy or whatever.
mhm,
Um, and I would definitely caution and maybe hold off, because if you want to support them, absolutely. But
mhm,
it seems like there are a lot of bugs. If you watch the development video, you'll see why. Uh, I mean, obviously the whole war thing, having to move your staff,
right,
it's made things very difficult, and
mhm,
it seems like there's a very good game underneath it all. But
mhm,
right now, kind of like Cyberpunk was in the beginning,
right,
there's
yeah. It's just
uh,
yeah,
it depend. It all depends.
no, yeah, no. I mean, in this case, like it's basically just like you said, they're dealing with a lot over there. They created a really good game, but in order for you to get the full experience for it, you have to play through it. But um damn, I lost my train of thought. What was
Yeah, it's just I just hope that they can get all the bug fixes down,
Mm,
because most of the scores are positive. But
mm,
again, I'm looking at a lot of the positive scores, and if you have 0.2 hours, I don't know. A lot of it is you hear of review bombing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where people, for whatever reason, they just decide we hate this thing and we're just gonna post negative reviews even if we never played it.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it almost seems the opposite, where because of support for Ukraine and whatnot,
Right.
there's a lot of positivity going here, which I think we should also caution against too,
Yes.
because we should call out things that are bad about the game.
Yeah.
If the
Right.
game has so many bugs and glitches that it's unplayable, then
yeah, I think the key is just like being constructive with those criticisms and like just sharing information that's truthful. Like you don't have to bash the game and you don't have to make stuff up. But another thing to remember is that it is a survival game, so 0.1, 0.2 hours is not really gonna give you enough experience of the game to, I would say, give you a good opinion of what to expect. Because with most survival games, unless it's one of those gimmicky ones, like you have to play through it for quite some time before you really get the feel for it and start to have fun with
there's no game that you can play half an hour for and give a fair review. And most of these are less than half an hour.
So it's like, what are you really like completing then, and what are you reviewing? But yeah, I thought that was interesting because besides this game, there are other games that follow that same vein where developers will take experiences that they're dealing with and they find ways to implement them in their games. Like there's another game by 11-bit studios called This War of Mine, which was inspired by the siege of Sarajevo during the Bosnian War. The developers aim to depict the civilian experience in conflict zones. So the game focuses on survival from a civilian perspective, emphasizing moral dilemmas and the harsh realities of war, which directly reflects the developer's intent to portray the human side of conflict. Then you have games like Papers, Please by Lucas Pope. He's an indie developer who faced the challenge of creating engaging gameplay around the mundane task of border control. The game has repetitive mechanics which are intentionally designed to evoke the tedium and moral complexity of bureaucratic work. Which mirrors the developer's exploration of routine and ethical decision making.
Okay. So it's like going to work but not getting paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
interesting choice.
Yeah, so like you see the games like these, it's kind of fascinating, at least for me to see, where developers will take these aspects of their lives and like implement them in a game and make them something that is fun, but also like sharing their story, almost like if they were to write like a biography or something like that, like they're sharing a piece of their lives with people. And
well, yeah, because some of them have gone through, especially these people from GSC Game World.
Right.
They've gone through extraordinary experiences. These are things that are going to be written in history books that children 100 years from now are going to learn about.
Right.
But we have the opportunity to hear about some of these things firsthand. Like there was this woman, she was talking about how she decided to stay instead of going on the buses and leaving across the country because she had her daughter there and she didn't want to leave. And she during the Crimean crisis, she worked as a somewhere in the medical field. So she knew that her experience there could help her people here, and she decided to stay. And then when things started to get bad, she had to, she put her mom and her daughter in her car. She's talking about how she had to wave and her daughter pushed her cheek against the window and she's crying and, they're both crying and she has to wave by. And regardless of that, she still decides that she's going to stay and help. Like that's an incredible story in and of itself, right? Like this is something that you would want to read about this. It humanizes it in a way that this isn't just something that happened in history. Like, these are real people that are affected by these events.
Right.
And it just adds an extra element to it that I think a lot this extra element, and it's authentic.
Right.
Um,
Right.
that people love to hear about.
Right. They're literally sharing a piece of their lives. And I think another part of it, you could argue that you hear today people talk about news outlets, depending on who you listen to, it's not accurate news. They're not doing the proper coverage of certain events. Like,
Of course.
it's interesting to see that, or consider that you can look at something like this medium of video games, where you can look at the developers, see what they went through, and see what they were trying to do when they created the game, and actually get a piece of true history simply by playing the game.
Right.
How accurate it is, it's still coming from their perspective, so you can't necessarily say you can get all your information from the game itself, but at the very least you can see a piece of their story, a piece of their lives, so you can kind of somewhat compare and contrast that to some of the information that you get through media outlets. But
well, I think that's actually really cool, because hearing it, you know, you have the history, right? And history is usually told by the winners.
right,
But being able to see the other side's perspective,
right,
excuse me, that's really cool, and it's informative, because you know, let's just say Vladimir wins this war, and he'll say, you know, that there were rebels that that didn't want to be a part, you know, that were rebelling or whatever, and he helped unify the people and whatnot. But then you actually get to hear their side of the story. It's like, dude, we were chilling in our home trying to make video games, and you just came and destroyed our world. So, you know,
right.
I think it's cool to hear two different sides of the story, and I think you bring up a good point now, that how video games can act as this medium, where you don't have to read a history book, or even watch a YouTube video telling you about these things.
Right.
Seeing it now, of course, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because
Of
you know
course.
they do. But I think this is one of those things that will kind of like a gateway drug. You hear about it, and it's like, oh wow, that sounds interesting. Well, I want to go read and see how much of this is true.
Right.
So it can get people to want to learn about these events, which I think is really cool.
No, yeah, I agree. The only thing I worry about with that is depending on who gets their hands on the distribution of the games, could do what some of these other companies have been trying to do, which is censorship, like we were talking about yesterday, or they're or just trying to rewrite history from their perspective, so as to not offend the consumer. But I'm sure they have different standards in different countries, but when it comes to our country and becomes quote unquote localized, it kind of makes me a little bit fearful, because again, this goes into the fact that, like, I want to see their story for what it is. I don't want you to make it safe for me, or try to make it more I don't know what you would call it, just make it a better lack of a better narrative that it wouldn't necessarily offend people, because then you're discrediting the developers, because again, they put their heart and soul into it, and that's not fair to them, it's not fair to me. But
and I mean, they're putting their lived experiences in there too.
right,
So
it's something they
censoring
want to
that
share.
is,
Yeah. And I just I want to see more of that, and I'm kind of hoping that there may come a time where we'll have more distribution networks that can take these works and protect them, protect how they were originated, and make it so that if you want to play the game as it was intended, you can go and do that. But again, when it comes to like the publishers and the developers themselves, if they make those decisions prior, there's really not much you can do about that. But yeah, again, I just like to see when people do put the effort, when especially when they have like the resources to do so, put the effort behind creating games like this, and telling their story for others to enjoy.
you know, and as technology gets better, that's what's going to happen. As it makes it easier for more people to get involved in this space where it's not monopolized by just a few.
Right.
So, you hear a lot of bad things about AI and what it's going to do and destroy jobs and whatnot. But AI will make it easier for other people to, it's going to make it easier for you to make your own game by yourself.
Right.
It'll be, if you're not artistic or whatever, it can draw the artwork for you. It can,
Right.
You don't know code. Well, that's okay, because you just write the prompt and it does the code for you and whatnot. Of course, we're not 100% there yet.
Right.
But as technology continues to get better, it's going to allow more people to have a voice, and freedom of speech is the foundation of our democracy, our democratic republic here.
Right.
And not to get too political, but at once upon a time, news could only go through these big publications, whether it be your newspaper or these TV stations that had these big deals, and the average person couldn't get there.
Right.
Whereas now, you have podcasts that have opened up, and anybody with a microphone can have their voice out there. Where now we're arguing. I've heard arguments: did Joe Rogan influence the election or not? Right? And it's like, he's just one guy sitting, in his basement or whatever.
Right.
But now he has more, so much power. And it's being taken away from the select few out there. And as more people, as technology gets better, it allows more people to have a voice. Right. And then we're not going to have to worry about stifling censorship and getting the message out there.
No, that's true. And that aspect honestly used to worry me a lot, because one of my main gripes was that I felt that too many people had a voice, specifically when social media really started like blowing up, from MySpace to YouTube. From MySpace to Facebook, then Instagram and YouTube. It came to a point where everybody had a voice, and then anybody could say anything or what they were feeling, and they were on the world stage. Like, they can get their point across. They can feel validated by developing a group of people who are like-minded. But I know there's always going to be people who like to spread misinformation, whether that be because they have their own motives or just because they want to cause chaos. But I think we might reach a point in our society, hopefully sooner rather than later, where people will learn how to sift through the BS. And then you could still have people who have a voice, who can say what they want to say, but they know how to not hone in on the things that are wrong. But I don't want to go too off topic with that. But that's just one thing that's always concerned me. It's just misinformation, because you could quite easily influence a nation, just like how they do on different political landscapes from other countries. They can change the narrative by controlling the news networks and controlling exactly what you hear. But
that's why it, in my opinion, that's why free speech is so important. Because,
yes,
in order to control misinformation, unfortunately, with free speech, there's going to be misinformation out there.
Right.
But how do you control that? I mean, how do you fix it? Is with more free speech, where more people, people saying what is the right thing. Whereas, if you have this basically cartel that controls the information, and then you just have to believe whatever they say, you're not given the full picture. Right. On whatever it is. So now, humanity's been around for I don't know how many tens of thousands of years or whatever. But we've just gotten into this point where everybody can have a voice. So it's going to take time for us to figure this out 100%. But I think that as everyone's able to speak and speak their minds, we're going to see that the best ideas are the ones that ultimately are going to make it out on top. Not initially, sometimes. We'll have to see, like, hey, that idea was kind of stupid, and then eventually we'll be able to get the best ideas out there. But I think I much prefer having it this way, where we can democratize it. We don't have to worry. imagine if the only games you could play came from Ubisoft. That would suck, right? But like
Yeah.
now that we live in a landscape where indie developers can come out here and you can play all these kinds of games that can take risks. They can do they can say things that are not popular with advertisers and things like that,
Right.
because they don't care.
Right. They have the freedom to do so. And I completely agree with you. That's very important that we continue to expand and allow people to have that freedom of speech so that the little guy can get in there, they can explain themselves, and they can get the real message out there. I think the main key is just not to settle on any one particular outlet, any one particular developer, whatever the case is. You have to be willing to expand your center of influence, because if you hear something that seems odd, you can go ahead and listen to your other mediums and try to gauge what the correct information is, because not any one person will get it all right, because we're humans, we're flawed.
Exactly. Like I used to pretty much just play World of Warcraft, and that was my entire world. And then all of a sudden I played Final Fantasy and I was like, wait a minute. There are things in this game that are just way better. Like, why do we do things that like we do in World of Warcraft? Why don't we do it this way? And once you start realizing, you can just be stuck in this one chamber, the echo chamber or whatever.
Yeah.
And you think that this is just the way things are. And then you don't realize other people are doing things better. And as you branch out, as I've branched out and I've started playing other games, now I'm back into my single player games binge, which I've missed out on because I was so focused on live service for so many years, and I thought that this was just it was the best at one point back when I was playing Halo. I don't remember when it kind of fell off for me, but I just kept playing it because it was just out of habit.
Right.
And now I'm falling in love with all these other smaller budget games because they're doing things that you can't do in a live service game and whatnot. So yeah, I think you're right. Expanding your horizons, seeing what other things are out there will help everybody overall. It just improves everything. Iron sharpens iron.
Right. And we'll get there eventually. But that's all I had for this one. You had anything you wanted to add?
No, that sounds good.
All right. Well, let us know what you guys think. Passion over profits. Should more games have more passion in their game creation? And any other questions you have, you could just hit us up on link in the description. But that'll do it for this one. We'll see you guys on the next one. All right. Peace.
Peace out.
Well, that about wraps it up for today's episode, Rebels. Don't forget to subscribe and stay informed on all things gaming. We've got some exciting projects coming up, so you won't want to miss what's next. We'd like to thank you again for tuning in and joining the rebellion. Until next time, happy gaming.